older parents, so my parents had me late in life, and that's great, but I think in terms of talking about sex when they were slightly older was just a bit weird for them.
Did you feel growing up that you could speak about sex openly?
My mum basically said, anything you don't understand, anything you want to question, come to me and ask. And we would. It was very different to what we were taught in school. School was rubbish. I mean, and stuff, the rumours that would go around and discussions and, you know, the stuff that you'd talk about in the playground, completely different. But the thing that we had is we could come home and go, Mum, is this true? And she would answer.
My parents are pretty modest, but at the same time, they were very open to answering my questions. They never tried to hide anything from me, so I was very grateful about that.
My parents, like, we don't talk about anything like that at all. It's just like, I don't know if this is, like, I know my brother was much more open. I think that's just a boy thing, like.
Yeah, me and my friends talk about sex a lot now, like at the pub and stuff. We're very vocal.
The information that I had about sex was basically it's only reserved for when you have marriage, and also very specific rules around it. There's like in the book, it's called Shulchan Aruch, which means the set table. It's this kind of guide rule book for Jewish practice, and it talks about sex in there in marriage, and it's very specific. It's like it's very, very specific, and you know, there's not. It's considered a mitzvah. You know, it's considered the purpose of sex is to procreate. That's the only real purpose for it in the
house. My mom just kind of didn't really talk about these things. Like, she never really spoke about boys. She never really spoke about sex or pregnancy and birds and the bees. But at the same time, we would be comfortable with the type of words we use when we did talk about it. Like, for example, I always knew penis and vagina as those words. Like, from a very young age, she never made that an awkward thing, but we just never delved into that conversation. That was more for my friends and Google.
Yeah. My parents and I have always had a very good, like, I ask them questions and they won't lie to me no matter what it is. So like in retrospect, when we've talked about it, they said they were very taken aback and like not sure what to do when I came home when I was like 6 or 7 and was like, Mom and Dad, like, what's sex? But they gave me a very clear like explanation, and funny because they told me at the time I was positively repulsed.
For the most part, I did feel like I was a little more open with my sexuality than some of my other friends. Like some girlfriends, you know, would get maybe a little uncomfortable. I kind of call myself like a guy's girl. Like I don't know. I just think I was just super comfortable with it.
Within the past 5 years, I just became so open about talking about sex, and I was the friend in the group that was giving advice because I was the first to lose my virginity. So I was always being like, oh, it feels like this, you can do this, and giving them advice. So I've just become so open about it. I'll talk to anyone about sex now. It's like, it's not a taboo subject anymore, it's so casual to me now.
Why is sex education so important?
Well, sex education in schools I think is so important because that is where you're getting a really vast and diverse representation of all young people. So it's a mandatory thing, kids have to be there, they're going to have to listen and learn, but it's also where you're going to get kind of a cross-section of society. And I think it's really important to learn about it from a young age to kind of have that acceptance and understanding, and it really builds empathy, I think, in people that affects you in your wider life, and you know, it has ripple effects throughout all of your relationships.
Definitely. I think that needs to change. I think we really need to educate younger, and there's countries that when we were doing our panel about like contraception, like they teach about contraception in places in Europe like much younger, and there are far less issues with, you know, underage pregnancy or contraception access.
Well, just from lack of it, just breeds fear and anxiety and unhealthy relationships.
Because it is so much more important for us as young people to learn about something that's such a big part of life and that's such a vulnerable thing. It's so important for us to learn about that from a reliable source.
It doesn't just kind of link to sex ed, and really good sex education is relationships and sex education, and it empowers you kind of in all parts of your life because it touches on all of that. Once you learn sexual consent, you learn consent for all of your body, you learn consent in conversations. Once you kind of talk about different identities, you learn to accept everybody and you feel accepted. It links everything.
We can't talk about masturbation. I mean, come on. We'll do it. If you don't do it, then if you're asexual, fine. But otherwise, no, I don't believe you.
I think also it's kind of, in some ways, there's like a sad side of it where I think everyone we talk to is like low-key, like everyone is low-key, at least low-key traumatised by sexual experiences that they've had. And I think that it's really sad and I think it's really avoidable. And so, like, in that sense, it seems like a really obvious intervention which already exists. It's just not being maximised.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I would agree. It's like it also is about learning so much about yourself and also how you basically relate to other people and how you have interactions with other people and how you communicate. So I think it's also ends up being such. It's like a micro. It's like this weird micro experience which actually reflects so much else how you kind of navigate other people in society.
I got really kind of confident talking about consent, and what I learned from teaching that was discussion is always better than kind of teaching.
Olivia Hedeman, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So my name's Anna Alexander, and I'm from Surrey. I went to school in Hampshire, it's quite rural, and I am a sex educator.
My name is Matilda. I grew up in North London. Now I live in South London, and I'm also a sex educator.
My name is Lizzie, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the U.S.
So you can see my photography, my fantastic photography, on Instagram at the_Mr. MR for Mr. .man. So it's THE_MR.MAN.